Hi, everybody, and thank you for being here today. My name is Teddy Kimball. I'm a vegetable farmer in Pine Island, where I live with my wife and two young kids. And I'm running the Republican primary for state senate against Steve Jacob on August 11th. Now, he's not a bad guy, but he does complain and blame other people a lot, focus mostly on social issues that divide us, and in 4 years of the legislature hasn't gotten done what we need. And so I'm running against him with a good faith Republican platform focused on bottom-up, community-driven policies. And so in 2 weeks, less than 2 weeks from today, you get to choose whether you'll be represented by a Trump Republican that follows party orders or by a principled one that carries on the true Republican values of Jefferson and Lincoln. Now, I'm here today as part of 5 campaign events across our district. Last week, we went to Pine Island to give them our 3-point plan for how to kick data centers out of Minnesota. And we do that by capping their special data center sales tax exclusion, by expanding our noise laws to capture the low frequency hum and vibration from data centers that affect our families and livestock, and 3, by making sure they cannot freely build massive diesel generators in our backyards. Today we'll be doing a quick talk on fraud in our state, some of the structural problems behind it, and what some of the solutions are. This Sunday we'll be in Cannon Falls, where I'll be giving a progressive argument to eliminate income taxes and take that burden off our working families, small businesses, and retirees on Social Security. Next Wednesday, I'll make the agrarian argument to legalize small farms and natural homes in order to reduce the cost of food and housing in rural Minnesota. And then next Saturday, I will be in Red Wing explaining why our election system is rigged to favor the establishment's Republican and Democrat candidates, and how with a few simple changes, we can make it easier for independents and third parties to join the race again. Okay, so today we're here talking about fraud in our state. And it's actually pretty simple once we break it down structurally. So it all starts at the top with our goal of using our government and taxpayer money to provide a top-down benefit to the people. These are almost always well-intentioned ideas. The question becomes, how do we deliver those payments and services from the government to the people? Now, traditionally, the answer is to take a private corporation and put them in the middle. But now, all of a sudden, we have some misaligned incentives here. The company is going to want to make as much money as they can. And this is true even for nonprofits that want to grow large and pay high executive salaries. And so the government is necessarily going to have to spend a lot of time and resources regulating and managing the relationship between the government and every single private business that they interact with. So what are some other solutions? Oh yeah, and when this happens, 2 things are going to happen. You're either going to have fraud or you're going to have inefficient government bureaucracy. Either way, we pay a little extra. So what are some alternatives? Well, one way would be to skip the private company altogether and give money directly to people for those services. The problem with this is very similar to the last one. Folks are either going to spend the money on something else, which drives the cost up for all of us, or the government is going to need to intrusively confirm that they're spending the money on the right things. We could go the other way, and instead of giving money to people, we could directly give services. Have the government fund public services. Now, but if we're going to do this, I think we need to do it right. And that means state resources and funding, district management, as well as local community oversight. And if that sounds familiar, that's exactly how our school district runs today. Although I think most folks would agree our districts would be better off with a little more resources from the state and a little less management. Now, there's one other thing we could do, and that is to actually break private companies here into a few different categories. The state provides one example for us through licensed professionals in a number of fields. This is a relatively rigorous processes that a lot of folks go through. So I think we can break this apart to not just private companies, but licensed professionals providing services to people. I'm much less afraid of government, of fraud and government overhead where those payments are going to licensed professionals who have their entire career on the line, rather than any random person that can spin up a company in an afternoon. So if we want to solve fraud in this state, we need to look at it structurally. And I believe that anytime we're having government payment to private companies, we're going to have fraud and inefficiencies. And likewise, if we give money directly to the people, we're mostly going to raise the floor of the cost of goods for all of us. And so I say we scratch these two off. We let the free market handle these situations. And we look to providing services through the licensed professionals in our state, and when the call to action is great enough, to public services. So I've got two examples today that I think will save our state some money and reduce some fraud. So over half of all births in this state are funded with Medicaid and government funding. But folks are paying upwards of $30,000 to have a natural, healthy pregnancy in a hospital. We should give these folks the freedom, if they so choose, to take advantage of one of the many licensed professional midwives in our community who charge them a third of the cost and save our state a lot of money. I also believe that it is time for us to support childcare in our school districts. There's been millions of dollars of fraud across a multitude of daycare and childcare programs throughout the state. And so I call on us to redirect that funding to our existing school districts, adopt the model that has already been proven of early childhood education and community daycare in those facilities. And let's make sure that our working families always have access to affordable childcare where they need it most, right in their communities. So thank you all. We're going to stop fraud. Remember, we need to think of this structurally and think of how we can eliminate the misaligned incentives. I appreciate you all for being here today. And remember that in less than 2 weeks, you've got a choice. You can choose to follow the standard partisan politics, or you can choose the principled Republican and chart a new path for Minnesota. Thank you all, and God bless.